So I remember when the original Archeage released back in the day, and I was so excited about it. Then I started hearing horror stories about how pay to win it was, and ended up not even downloading. Honestly, it's a shame because, spoilers, the game is pretty solid, just mechanically. It's got plenty of PvP opportunities, good ship mechanics, which is huge for me, and is just fun to muck around with friends in. Archeage Unchained is an interesting beast to examine because it's buy to play now but refuses all those old pay to win shenanigans that the original release came with. Whether or not that's a good thing is a question I'll try to answer today, but if the money grubbing was your only worry, take my word for it that dumping cash won't give you an innate advantage over anyone other than to look cooler. Totally not getting fashion frame flashbacks or anything. That was a really hard sentence to say. And so is that. I'm a genius. Hello ladies, gentlemen, and otherwise, what's up? My name is Devious, and today we're taking a look at the somewhat recently released Archeage Unchained, now that it's had some time to settle. Strap in, grab a drink, please stow all haram gear over by the punch bowl in the corner. Let's boogie. So, first and foremost, let's get the obvious out of the way. 3 simple questions that, for me, define a game. Number 1, is it accessible? Number 2, is it fun? And number 3, and the most important for me personally, will it hold my attention for a long period of time? Well, considering its $25 base price range, yes, it's fairly accessible. Also, somewhat in this category is the subject of how easy it is to get into in-game and how aggressive the monetization is. I've yet to see a way to pay into in-game, and while the grind is fairly horrible, if you tag along with a raid, it can be boiled down into a daily half-hour to hour-and-a-half blitz that gives you maximum efficiency while still leaving time to do the fun bits. I've been playing the game for a good while now, since a couple of months after its release in mid to early fourth quarter last year. That was complicated. I wasn't quite on top of it, just being blunt with that. In that time, I've gone through the stages of completely no-lifing it, bouncing to, I do not want to log on, and am now sitting somewhere in the middle with the mostly daily urge to log on and do my thing. Controls feel tight and you can modify them as you like. For performance, I've seen both ends of the spectrum with ping, with my first main being on the EU server. That's something I'll address in a moment. Overall, though, it's quite fun and feels good to play from my perspective. Lastly, longevity. This is a bit in question as the monster grind at endgame is bothering a large majority of the initial player base. The game still has plenty of regulars and I see tons of them every day, but that initial frustration might nag at some people over time. Activities are varied enough that I can do something different every day of the week and never really be doing the same thing twice, and of course playing with friends just amplifies this. About the ping issue. Archeage is very ping reliant with its skills with regards to damage output. Someone who has sub 40 ping is going to be outputting excessive amounts of damage from certain classes compared to someone with 140 ping doing far less. This is mainly noticeable on the Archer class, and though it's a small issue on melee and casters, it's not quite as obvious. Something to keep in mind if you're not near a server and want to play with a bow. All in all, if I had to give a solid yes or no answer to the question of should I play it, my answer would be maybe. If you have the spare cash and like an MMO with a semi-traditional feel and a good bit of complexity under the surface, then I'd say give it a shot, just because it's a rock-solid experience, even for someone who isn't usually big on the MMORPG market. Oh shit, I gave myself away! Now I have to divert a bit, because a certain cynical Brit instilled this reflex in me. Let's talk about the options menu. There's all the usual suspects of a solidly made game, options for full screen, windowed, or borderless, brightness, FPS settings, UI size, various forms of anti-aliasing, it's all there. You can even choose to switch between DirectX 9 or 11 if you like. Personally, I love that there's 3 different camera modes to choose from based on how in the fray you want your perspective to be. I like information, so I chose wide view, which lets me see as much as possible. There are separate quality and sound settings for anything I could think to ask for, and you can both choose exactly what information is displayed, i.e. the HUD and how it's set up, and rebind every key known to man. Good options menu, plenty to work with, even their approximation of an FOV slider. Rest in peace, TB. So let's get into the details. I'll be digging into the 0 to max grind, specifically the soft cap at 55, and a bit into ancestry levels, as that's as far as I've gotten so far. Then I'll work on gear and how that works, the Arch Pass, some of the cash shop, and some activities you can get into in late game. I'll also be talking about how classes work and interactions between skills, since that's a significant part of the game as well. Of course, there will be things that I miss, and if you have a specific question, feel free to ask me in the comments section. I'd be happy to answer or attempt to look up the information if I don't have it. First up, the initial grind. From the point you make your character, the game does a solid job of teaching you how things go through a brief tutorial sequence that gives you little to no rewards, but also can be skipped if you already know how things work. Once done there, you're put into a quest line that will give you ungodly amounts of XP just for following the main story, aka the green markers, until about level 30 to 33. After that, XP gain drops off significantly. The most efficient way to reach Ancestry is to do the main quest line until about level 30, and then start doing every single side quest you can find in an area you're directed to. This will both follow the main story quest still and give you enough XP to keep with the levels of the areas you visit. Once you get to about level 40 or 50, it's a good idea to either ask someone to teleport you to Aegis Isle for gold, or just suck it up and take a rowboat there for the memes, which is what I did on my second main character on NA. Aegis Isle mobs give you great XP and aren't ridiculously hard to kill, so this is my recommended grind spot for 50-ish and up. Getting to Ancestry gives you access to some ability modifiers. The only one that I currently have is for the first ability of the Battle Rage tree, which is Triple Slash, a basic attack kind of skill. At base, it does 2 basic attacks, and then the third does AoE damage. The modification I took swings faster and is a bit more mana efficient, but does a bit less damage. I tried the other mod, which has all of the attacks deal AoE damage and more damage in general, but swings slower. It didn't feel quite right for my playstyle, but it's there for your consideration, and you can rekit any skills you like at any time for a small fee of in-game currency. Now's a good time to look at classes and how they work, because it's a bit complex compared to the usual Holy Trinity configuration most games go for. If you're new to the Archeage system at all, this is for you. If you in any way know what's going on, please feel free to skip this part. It's going to be stuff you know. There are currently 12 classes, air quotes, that you can pick from, 6 of which you can choose from the start of the game, and you combine 3 of these to create your own full class, air quotes again. These range from Battle Rage, which is your basic melee damage skill tree, to Sorcery for magic damage, to Swiftblade for some sneaky dual-wielding shenanigans. The combinations are insane, and while not all of them are viable, there's something like 100+ combinations that you can play with, so customization is just great. On top of that, you can get Ancestry skill mods for all of these trees, further increasing customization. I really love this part of the game, as it gives you excellent capability to make a really you type of character. Currently, I'm running 2 slightly different classes, and I'll explain them here for anyone curious. My EU main is a Doomlord, which combines Battle Rage, Occultism, and Defense. Battle Rage gives me good melee capability and some chase potential with jump skills, which, when combined with Occultism's magic damage and CC, makes me very dangerous to fight 1v1. Stack Defense's survivability, and suddenly you have a tank in heavy armor with a shield laughing at every strike taken while flying at you and dumping curses. On my NA main, I went for Executioner, which is very similar with one key difference. It still uses Battle Rage and Occultism for a bit of survivability and damage alongside that lovely CC, but this time I went Shadowplay for more mobility and to have some more damaging skills. With this setup, I wanted to be a combo bruiser / assassin for the guild my friends are building, and being able to dart around is extremely powerful in most PvP situations. These are just some base examples, and I haven't even touched most of the playstyles available. There are setups for full support, raw tank, many kinds of direct damage, and basically anything else under the sun. Play around with this a bit, because you can switch your skill sets at any point by visiting a skill trainer or a priestess of Nui, of which there are plenty around most, if not every map. You will have to train them separately, but you can run 2 maxed out skill sets with one low level one to make that grind a little less painful. I really do like the way they did classes. A note about the skills. Each skill has its own effects, obviously, but some may interact with each other. Case in point, on my Executioner, there's a poison skill in the Shadowplay tree. A poison target takes extra damage from 2 other skills that I have, that being a multi-strike and a single high damage strike that procs a bleed. The bleed then procs extra damage on some of the battle rage abilities. In addition, one of the occultism abilities causes a slow, which a battle rage skill can take advantage of to trip the target, offering even more CC. I'll include a link to a class builder page that will show you many of the interactions if you care to look it up, or you can experiment and see what happens. The game itself also has a handy little flash on each skill that has an interaction available, which makes stacking them pretty easy once you get all your classes rolling. We got classes done, finally. Now let's talk about gear. You start the game with almost nothing, but are soon given a full set of your chosen armor between cloth, leather, and plate, and a good selection of weapons that range from one-handed to two-handed to shields, and everyone gets a bow. You'll hang on to these weapons until you start getting into Haram gear, which is basically this kit already upgraded. You upgrade through infusions, which are given via the main story quest. If you mess up with the infusions for whatever reason, you can break them down with an Adventurer's Everstone to get all your materials back, and then buy fresh Adventurer's gear from a weapons or armor merchant. You'll want to be familiar with this process anyway, as when gear is upgraded to its second iteration via scrolls, you can get an ability modifier. This can be something like strength or stamina or intelligence, and which one you want will depend on your class setup. Personally, on my builds, I want strength and stamina with a little bit of intelligence, as those are best for melee with a dash of magic. You can reroll these stats via the process above. Be sure you don't use a normal Everstone on Adventurer's gear. It won't give you back your infusions, and you'll be forced to purchase them again through a general merchant. Armor has 3 basic configurations, that being cloth, leather, and plate. Cloth is best for casters and nullifies more magic damage than physical. Leather is an archer's best friend with bonuses to range damage, and plate is best for physical defense, but is more susceptible to magic. Whichever one you pick is up to you, based on what damage you think you'll be taking the most, and what type of damage you do in return. Weapons have all shades that I won't be going over in detail here, but I'll cover the basics. Each weapon will deal either slashing, crushing, or piercing damage. Slashing deals more to leather, while piercing and crushing deal more to plate. You can either run with a one-handed weapon and a shield, dual wield, or two-hander. I use a sword and shield on my Doom Lord for extra defense, and a sword and axe on my Executioner for extra aggression. Depending on your skills, 1 big weapon or 2 little ones will affect your damage output, but this is something to experiment with based on the abilities you pick. Small note, by the way, if you're going healer, pick a staff or a great staff or something like that. I think they're called clubs. So let's talk grind, because once you get gear up to Haram, it gets real. To get Haram infusions, you'll either have to kill enemies on the northern continent or do daily kill missions. Now, these missions are unreasonable to do on your own, but there are fairly constant raids, at least as of the recording of this video, that cover all of them in one big sweep. These can be done in either a half hour or an hour and a half, and often are filled with regulars who really know their stuff. I'd recommend tagging along if you see a Haram raid in chat. Just hit Control R and hit the magnifying glass roughly bottom center to see if any are up. Then you'll have to figure out where they are and teleport to the starting point. After that, the raid leader will open portals to each venue and everyone will go do the raid together, so don't worry too much about not being leveled enough for it. Just keep close enough to the raid leader so the skills register, else you'll be left with 1 or 2 while everyone else is done. Before I get into the Arch Pass and Cash Shop, I want to address late game activities you can get into. I haven't done too many myself, but there are plenty of options from what I can tell. You can get a ship, and that by itself starts plenty of fun opportunities like piracy and fishing. Fishing is extremely lucrative, and some people still do fishing raids to have safety in numbers. There's a merchant NPC ship that goes from the Nuian continent to the Haranian side, where you can trade cargo for these little bottles that sell for great profit, but having your own ship to load up once you have more gold to burn is always quicker, as the NPC ship only moves about every half hour or so. Contrasting both of these is piracy and banditry, as you can easily locate a merchant schooner and raid it for all of its trade packs. The NPC ship is usually no good because there's a pass that makes you pretty much invincible while you're on it, and not worth. This is PvP piracy at its finest. That was hard to say. Same thing for on the ground, as farm carts carrying trade packs from home to market are somewhat common, but this isn't necessarily easy, as unless you're going straight pirate, you're going to be attacked by town guards in the opposite continent. This whole process is a little funny. Then there's the more tame activities, like grinding mobs for golden gear, working on your home/farm for materials to craft or sell, or even raising shipwrecks to take lost cargo. All of these are lucrative in their own way and fun to their target audience. Now for the cash shop and the Arch Pass. Similar to battle passes in other games, you can choose a regular Arch Pass or a premium version that has a few differences. Currently, once you hit level 40, you can pick between basic, equipment, vocation, and combat. Doing quests will let you progress these packs for rewards. Premium rewards look to be only cosmetic and convenience, like teleportation stones and fancy clothing with no extra bonuses. The basic passes give you solid rewards in the form of potions that increase loot drops, decrease honor loss, diligence coins, even inventory expansion scrolls, and a couple other items you're going to want in the long run. It's not the most egregious pass I've seen in a game, but it does increase that daily grind schedule to an extent. However, if you're doing these activities anyway, it's not too bad of an excess. We'll call it decent. Now to the cash shop, and let me explain my point of view before we dive into it. I'm very tight with my money, and as such tend to rail pay-to-win games mercilessly when I deal with them. Certain things like XP boosters are okay-ish, but even then it grinds my gears a little bit. So rest assured that when I say the cash shop is solid in this game, I'm telling the absolute truth. First, there are technically two marketplaces, one for diligence coins, which you can get from the Arch Passes, the basic ones, and one for credits, which is the real-world currency equivalent. The diligence shop I won't bother with because, frankly, you get them from doing in-game things, and it's not part of the cash shop in my mind. Now, the actual cash shop is pretty decent. I've looked over most of the items, and it seems they're either purely cosmetic or convenience/quality of life. The only things I see that I could really want are storage boxes to have more inventory space, but again, you can get more of that in-game through the basic pass, so it doesn't bother me much. It just takes a little bit of time. All in all, the cash shop isn't offensively aggressive, and it's nice to see. They seem to have kept their promise about going completely non-pay-to-win. In conclusion, the overall grind is brutal, but it's an Asian-based MMO, so can't really fault them for that. The game is fun, much more so with friends, so if you want a straight answer of whether or not to try it if you're interested, then since you've gotten this far in the video, I'll give a solid sure, why not, assuming the devs continue to support the game moving forward. As stands, once you reach endgame, there's not much to do other than grind and play around for gold in, to be fair, quite a wide array of activities, or go fight other players in the open world, which is also quite fun. If nothing else, Archeage Unchained has some of the better ship mechanics I've seen in an MMO, and for me, that's worth giving it a fair shake just for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by and thank you for viewing. I hope you've all had a wonderful day and that my video made your day a little bit better. It may or may not be obvious, but I made this video with the intention of paying homage to Mr. John Total Biscuit Bain, who was a massive influence to me and gamers around the world. My only hope is that I've done his memory proud and, fingers crossed, carried on his legacy of blunt honesty. Everyone, I hope your days and drops are blessed by RNGesus and your crits be often. Have a lovely day, and I'll see y'all next round.